Hello and welcome to the hands-on VMware vSphere 6.x data center design. In this section, we will be looking at virtual network common terms and terminology and virtual network concepts. We start with VLAN, which is a logical network configuration and found in the regular networking. On the virtual network, we define port group, which is very similar in functionality and concept to the VLAN, where two virtual machines having the same network label and configuration will be able to communicate with each other. A port group has two types: virtual machine port group, which allows connectivity between virtual machines, and a special type of port group called VM kernel port group, which has its own TCP/IP stack and provides access to iSCSI, vMotion, fault-tolerant logging, and management functionality for ESXi. In the virtual networks, we also define an uplink, which is a link to a physical Ethernet adapter linking the virtual environment to the external or enterprise network using physical network interface cards. A virtual network is defined as virtual machines connected to each other and to external networks. VNIC is a virtual NIC on the virtual machine itself, whereas a PNIC or a physical NIC is the actual physical network interface card on the ESXi host, which allows connectivity to the upstream external physical networks. A vSwitch is a software construct defined in the virtual networking, which allows connectivity between network elements. It is actually the glue that connects all the network components and connectivity to be established. A similar switch is a distributed virtual switch. It is a more enhanced version of the vSwitch standard switch, and it is deployed across all hosts in a data center for centralized provisioning and administration. However, it is available only with vCenter deployment. In this graphic, we show the connectivity between virtual and physical networks. The graphic shows four virtual machines, each with a single virtual NIC connected to a port on the virtual switch. The picture also shows two virtual switches, and they are connected to the external network or enterprise network using uplink ports, and these uplink cards are the actual physical network adapters. In this picture shows a little more detail on the port groups. We see three virtual machines with a single virtual NIC connected to a virtual machine port group, and the graphic also shows VM kernel ports on the same virtual switch. A point to note here is that a virtual switch can have a mix of VM kernel and virtual machine port groups, as shown in this graphic as well. The virtual switch is then connected to the external network using two uplink ports or two physical network interface cards. This graphic shows the networking on an ESXi host using WebClient, which is a GUI client available with ESXi. The upper part of the highlighted area shows vSwitch 0 and vSwitch 1. Typically, in the basic installation, vSwitch 0 is established and allows connectivity and administration of the ESXi. Later on, a vSwitch 1 has been added, perhaps for additional networking. The lower highlighted area shows 400-prod, a network with a VLAN ID 400. It appears to be a production network. We also see a 300-dev, which is a VLAN ID 300 and appears to be a development network. These numbers are not chosen randomly, rather they have one-to-one mapping with the actual VLAN IDs that are flowing through that enterprise network, which allows that connectivity to be established. When we consider virtual network concepts, virtual machines in a data center are connecting to networks similar to how machines are connected in a physical network, and a user or a server interacting with virtual machines is unable to distinguish or determine if it's connecting and communicating with the virtual machine or a physical server. The virtual network elements that we reviewed earlier include network interface cards, standard switch, distributed switch, and port groups. And each virtual machine can have one or more virtual NICs. In one of the videos we will review Maximum's guide, which allows up to 10 virtual NICs to be connected to a single virtual machine, allowing connectivity to 10 different networks. A virtual NIC has its own MAC and IP address. VM kernel TCP/IP networking stack supports the following functionality: iSCSI, NFS, vMotion, and fault tolerance logging, among many other functions. And these are configured using the TCP/IP stack available. Virtual machines communicate through standard and distributed switches. Virtual networking provides connectivity between virtual machines, and there are multiple flows. It can be on the same host, it can be between virtual machines on different hosts, and it can be between virtual machines and physical machines on the external network. All these different flows are possible with a combination of all the network components we've reviewed so far in the virtual networking. Port groups define how a network connection is made through the switch to the network. A virtual machine's NIC connects to a port on the switch. Each uplink adapter also uses one port on the switch, and a port group defines port configuration options, which includes VLAN tagging. To summarize virtual network concepts and terms, understanding of virtual network components, virtual network flows, we took a detailed look at all of these network components, which help us to understand how virtual networks and physical networks communicate with each other, where is the transition, and how virtual network machines are able to connect and communicate with each other and on servers which are external to the network. In the next video, we will be comparing physical and virtual networks. Thank you.